Our reading today, the Old Testament from 2 Samuel, skips over the death of Saul at the hands of an Amalekite. And also David's slaying of this assassin for killing Saul, who was the Lord's anointed. There are conflicting stories in the Bible of Saul's death. Was it suicide, or was he killed by archers, or was it charioteers? Was the Amalekite simply a messenger and David killed him because he wanted payment? Or was he in fact the assassin? It doesn't really matter because he was just as dead. Information gets jumbled in the midst of a war. And there were at least two authors to these stories of Saul's death. And then there's the question of whether or not Saul was the anointed one of God, because he had strayed away from God and David had been anointed to replace him. All we know was that Saul was dead and that his son Jonathan was also killed, and that Jonathan was David's boon companion. Now, verses 19 to 27 that Rhonda read are a dirge on Saul and Jonathan. And we are certain that this was written by David himself. And on the basis of this one poem, David has to rank among the great writers of lyric poetry. Ye mountains of Gilboa, let there be no dew or rain upon you, nor bounteous fields. For there the shield of the mighty was defiled, and the shield of Saul anointed with oil no more. How the mighty have fallen, and the weapons of war perished. It's a beautiful elegy, but there is something missing from the elegy. Did you notice what it was? Ask yourself, if an enemy had killed your best friend and his father, for whom you had a great deal of respect, what kind of elegy would you write? Well, you will not find in this lament of David's is any anger. There's no recrimination, no blaming, no hatred. There's only loss and sadness and love and praise. There's no ego. There's no sense of vindication. David did not go by appearances. He did not judge Saul, even though Saul had wanted him dead. As Yahweh had seen into the heart of the young shepherd boy that David had been, so David is able to see into the heart of Saul, and to see Saul as he had been and how God had intended him to be. He laments the man who was anointed with power, but ended up a broken man. His love for Saul was as steadfast as his love for Jonathan. His lament is not spoken as by one who knows of his imminent accession to power. He is going to become king. But he doesn't write it from that point of view. He writes it as the shepherd boy upon whom the Spirit of God rests. It is spoken by one who knows firsthand that the love of God is a steadfast love, a firm and unwavering loyalty upon which he can trust his life. Now, David's going to make his own mistakes as king. He will accomplish great things, but in other things he was an inept ruler. But he remains favored by God's steadfast love, because David always keeps returning to God. And in response to God's love, David's love for God remains steadfast. Are you capable of that kind of love? Steadfast, selfless. For example, have you ever caught yourself criticizing another person instead of lamenting the fact that they're broken? Have you ever looked at another person and instead of criticizing the way they're broken, asked yourself, how am I broken? How does that affect how I see that person, how I love that person? Now, because David knew God's steadfast love, he waited for the Lord. As in Psalm 130, my soul waits for the Lord more than those who watch for the morning, more than those who watch for the morning. O Israel, hope in the Lord, for with the Lord there is steadfast love. With him there is great power to redeem. Now this is a psalm of penitence, and it's one of the most beautiful psalms in the Bible. And it says that it is because of God's steadfast love for us that we can approach him in supplication, that we can ask him for what we need. In the Gospel of Mark, we have two stories of faith that arises in desperate circumstances. And both those people are driven by their faith and by their circumstances to go to Jesus and to appeal to him for his help. First, there's Jairus, whose daughter is dying. He shows up amidst the rabble that's surrounding, pressing in upon Jesus. And he shows up in his elegant attire as a leader of the temple. He comes looking for Jesus. He looks all around. And finally he sees him. And when he finds him, he throws himself at the feet of Jesus, begging him to save his daughter. Now in that moment, he's not thinking about how this is going to look to his congregation in the synagogue. Here he is in all his finery and all his power and all that, and he's prostrating himself in the dirt before Jesus, who a lot of those people in the synagogue didn't like. He's begging him to save his daughter. And in that moment, he's not thinking about his power or his prominence. He is focused like a laser on Jesus. And he, in doing that, has just dropped all his masks, all his pretenses, so that he is fully present to Jesus. And then there is the woman suffering from a hemorrhage. She spent all her money on doctors, and to no effect. And because of this flow of blood, she is considered unclean. And she's been that way for 12 years. Her friends have abandoned her. She is not allowed to enter the synagogue where Jairus is the leader. She has given up all hope. She has no friends except Jesus. She has heard of Jesus, and she has a desperate faith in him. If I but touch his clothes, I will be made well. She has ignored all of society's rules. Society of that day says she's unclean. She should not even be in that crowd of people. She should be off by herself with the other unclean not associating with society. But she has erased all the barriers that society has placed between her and others, between her and God. And when she has gotten rid of those barriers, then God rushes in. God rushes into her life. Imagine the scene. The crowd pressing around Jesus, jostling each other to get to him. So many people want to touch him. It's like the people who go to church for all the wrong reasons. They go because they think they should, or because others do, or because they're hoping for a little magic to turn their lives around without having to invest their being, their souls, their selves, or divest themselves of their egos. Yeah, the kind of thing that faith requires of us. Of all these people crowding around Jesus, how many do you think were there because he was the curiosity of the week? How many were there because of the entertainment value? How many were there, if it's anything like today, to try and rip off a piece of his clothing for a souvenir? But among that crowd was one woman of faith. A woman who had come to faith like many do out of desperation. The woman touched Jesus. She was healed. And Jesus was immediately aware that power had gone forth from him. Think about that. Here was a man of apparently humble origins, an ordinary man, by all appearances. But his appearance meant nothing to people who saw him through the eyes of faith, like Jairus and the woman with the hemorrhage. So Jesus tells the woman, "Daughter, your faith has made you well." Jesus was so imbued with the love of God, so full of God's power, that he could not help but love and heal others. Are you there yet? I think in today's world, even if we want to help, it's hard to figure out how to do that. You see a homeless person. Do I help or harm by giving that person $5? If only we could see people as Jesus did. See their heart, not their appearance. Are you in prayer seeking God's guidance so you can heal in the continuing ministry of Jesus Christ? And then there is Jairus and his daughter. Jesus overhears the servants telling Jairus that his daughter is dead. To which Jesus says, "Do not fear, only believe." When Jesus arrives at the house of Jairus, the mourners there, most of them are probably professional mourners, they laugh at Jesus. They ridicule him. These are people that say, we've been here before. We know death when we see it. This man is crazy. They cannot see his love and power. They cannot see beyond the fixed limits of their world. And ridicule him, that's nothing. Not long after this, people like this who are ridiculing him now are watching him being tortured and murdered. But there is another reason they laugh. How do you respond to a man who looks no different from other men, but he is a man to whom death is not the final word? How do you deal with that? Derision is the way many people do. In fact, throughout history since Christ, he has often been ridiculed. People have greeted the good news that in Jesus God is reconciling the world to him. They replied to that by attacking Jesus. And attacking Jesus is just a way of avoiding looking at yourself. Jesus tells the mourners to leave, takes the girl's hand, and says to her, "Little girl, get up." The next time you hear of a girl or a woman being mistreated or abused, think of Jesus healing the woman and then saying to the daughter of Jairus, "Little girl, get up." Jesus went against the norms of his day, including the treatment of women, because he saw all people the way God sees them. Are you there yet? Are you ready to follow Christ? I mean, really to follow Christ? Are you eager to do God's work in this world?
Yes.
How easy it is to get wrapped up in all the excitement of finding Jesus. And you start making plans, but then everything kind of fades away. You were really excited, but how deep did you really go? That's what Paul is saying to the Corinthians. Did you remove your masks? Or did you keep those barriers up? Those barriers that keep the love of God from coming into your life and going out through you to others. Are you capable of steadfast love? A love that will never fade. Because that kind of love is possible only with the help of God.